Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of You Pick the Assets, I Make the Game. As you can see on the screen, we have our asset for this video, which is a mouse knight, suggested by one second. Alaurin. Well, I think suggested this one last time, but didn't quite get enough likes, but this time he ran away with it. We're going to be adding a mouse knight to our rock monster rabbit game thing. It seems pretty straightforward what we're going to do with it. We could be a bit weird and do something strange with them, but I think while we've got an obvious path, we'll stick to it for now, because at some point we're going to hit a point where we have assets that don't quite fit the game, and then we're going to have to think of interesting things to do with them. So, seeing as it's quite obvious what we can do with the mouse, we're just going to do that. So I've imported our mouse knight. See what we'll just go straight into the prefabs folder. We have a low res and a PBR version, so we'll just grab our PBR mouse, drag him in. Looks good. Nice little dude. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do here is most of what we need to do to start with, spawning the mice, giving the mice animations, having the mice move around, is repeating stuff that we did with the rock golem and the rabbits. So I'm just going to fast forward through that lot, and then when I get to a point where we're doing something that we didn't do in the previous 2 videos, we will resume. So I shall see you shortly. And welcome back. So, all I've done so far is I've given the mouse some basic controls. The animations on this model do not have root motion, so unlike the bunnies where we can just let the animation move them around, we've had to do what we did with the golem, where I give it a actual movement value and we move it in code with this line here. All of this code here, none of it does anything that we haven't already gone over in the previous 2 videos. Basically, what it's set to do is every frame, well, if it's not dead, obviously, every frame it will look at the enemy, wherever the enemy is. The enemy is the golem. At the minute, we're just getting the golem through a game object find. We will change that when we get the spawner going. And then when it looks at it, it will do a check because we always want to be looking at the enemy. These mice, they're not going to be doing anything but attacking our poor rock golem. And then we do a check if we are close enough, which is checking if the distance between our mouse and our enemy is less than the attack range, which we'll set in the inspector. I've found that from a little bit of testing that 4 is roughly about right. There's no colliders involved, so it's literally just putting in a number and seeing if it looks right. And then if we are within distance, we check if the attack cooldown is less than 0, because we don't want to just keep attacking like every frame. And if it is, we will set moving to false, trigger the attack animation, and then set the attack cooldown to a timer, which I should probably, in fact, I'll do that now. We'll just make the timer, make the attack cooldown something we can change in the inspector. So attack cooldown will equal cooldown, and then we'll set that in the inspector. And then if the cooldown is not set to 0, then we de-increment the cooldown. And then if we're not in the attack range, then we make sure our animator is set to moving, and then we move. And then this here, kill and decompose, is exactly this. I literally just copy and pasted it out of the bunny script. So that's, again, that's previous video if you're wondering what's going on there. The other changes I made in the throne rock, where we do our check for our bunny, I copied and pasted these 2 lines and made another one for mouse. I don't know why I've got a big tab space there. So that if we hit a mouse, we look up the mouse knight component instead of the bunny component, and then call the exact same function, and all the exact same stuff happens. So what that results in, I just go in here, we've got our mouse knight here. I've got the speed set to 0 at the minute, so I can demonstrate. Cooldown, I had that at 0.8, I think, or 9.8. So just so I can demonstrate it working, I've got the speed set to 0, so our mouse isn't going to go anywhere. As you can see, he's running here. And if I walk my golem back a bit so that his rock throwing is in range, and I throw a rock, we should kill that mouse. There we go. And then if I set the speed, I found 2 was a good number, so that our mouse can actually move. He's going to chase our poor golem around and whack him with a stick. So that's what I did in that sped up section. As I say, that's not really covered anything that we haven't already done, so there was no point in showing you all that again. But now we've got there, let's add some new stuff. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we'll go back to our script, we'll go into our golem. We need to add some health. So we'll do a public int health, and we're just going to say equals 100. By default, we can change that in the inspector, obviously. And then, much like our kill void here, we're going to add a take damage one here. So, public void take damage, and it will take in an int. Immediately, it will just say health minus equals damage. And then, if health is less than 0, well, we haven't got a kill function, but we're going to do kill, and once again we will just copy these two. No point in rewriting everything. You could theoretically add this code here, because as long as you make sure that all of your mouse, your bunny rabbit, and your golem all have an is dead bull, and that all their animators have their death animation called die, you could put this code in its own script and then just put that script on each of the components. In fact, that's a much better way to do it. I should have done it that way from the start, but I won't change it now, like, because this game is going to get like a cleanup session before it's quote finished, so I'll save that for later. But basically, you would put all this in one script, call that script, I don't know, death, and then in here, when you're detecting a collider, you don't have to check for each individual tag. You can just check if it's something like, just have one tag for, call that tag squishy, for example, and then you would just look up the one script, which is the death script. So that would be a more elegant way of doing it, but for now I'm just going to leave it. We'll save all that for cleanup and stuff afterwards. So let's go up here, we'll add in the is dead bull equals false, and then obviously we want to, you know what, we can just utilize this if here. So say if is throwing or is dead, then we don't want to do anything, and then all the rest of that stays the same. But then we need to actually put this into our golem controller. So we'll find our golem animations, drag in a die here, and then we need to add this trigger die. This can be from any state, and then obviously we don't need an exit, because once he's died, he's not going to be getting back up. We don't actually need the decompose really, because once the golem's dead, that's game over, but for now we'll just leave it as it is. So now we actually need to implement the mouse knight part of the code, so it actually gives damage. Now the thing about this, because of the way we're implementing, because the golem moves slowly, we can kind of cheat is what I'm about to say. Because the golem moves slowly, and because the mouse is only going to swing his stick if he is within range of the golem, and he's always facing the golem by default, like nothing happened. The first thing that happens is our mouse looks at the golem. So because of all that, we don't really need to do any proper maths here. We can just say if he's swinging his stick, then basically he's hitting the golem, because if he's not close enough to the golem to hit him and he's not facing the golem, he's not going to be swinging his stick. So by default, if he's swinging his stick, the golem is getting hit. So we don't need to check if he actually makes contact with the golem, because we know he's going to make contact with the golem. So it's kind of cheaty, but yeah. So we're going to make a new public function, void hit, no, thank you autofill, void hit, and all that's going to do is golem equals get component. We've already got a reference to the golem transform here, so we want to say enemy.get component golem, and then we can immediately just call the function, which will be take damage, and then we'll pass in random.range, and we'll give it between 10 and 16, just to vary things up a little bit. And I've probably missed some brackets here somewhere. Yeah, because we're not just grabbing the component, because we're actually using a function, we don't need to be setting it as golem. So now the last thing we need to do is we need to call this. Now we could just put it in here, in the, in here, in the, where we actually call the attack, but that's kind of, it's going to register the hit before we've even swung the stick, which feels a bit, you know, I'll have some standards, they're not very high, but they are there. So if we go into our, wherever he is, mouse knight, and we open our animation thing, we should find our animations in here. We'll go to attack one, we're going to need to see while this is happening, and then we scrub forward, and we will class that there as the hit point. So we'll add an animation event, and in the function we want to call hit. And I think if we press play and we click on our golem, we should see his health go down. There we go. Going down in random amounts. Let's see if he actually dies. And there he goes. Oh, okay, so we're going to have to change that a bit because the animation was still being called. So we should be able to fix that if we just go into our golem and where it says take damage and say if is dead. If is dead, we don't want to do any of this. So let's just quickly test that, make sure it still works. We'll set the health to 10, so this should be basically a one-hit kill. Yeah, the mouse is still beating him, but so he doesn't know what to do now. So we'll have to put in some code in the mouse so that he understands that there's nothing to hit. So we'll say if is dead or enemy is equal to null. That should stop us getting these missing reference exceptions that we were just getting then, because he was trying to find an enemy that was no longer there. So let's just test that one more time. Hopefully the mouse will just stop once our troll is dead. A golem. He's going to keep beating him with a stick. Oh no, we're still getting that. Oh right, okay, I think that's because the hit function was called while the golem was still there, but then of course the golem despawned before the animation started while the golem was still there, but the hit function didn't get called until afterwards. So what we'll say is, if we'll make is dead public, and then in Mouse Knight, instead of taking in a reference to the transform, we will make this an actual golem reference. So golem enemy equals gameObject.find golem.get component golem. And again, once we bring in our spawner, we'll pass this in so we're not using a find object every time we spawn in a mouse, but we'll change that in a bit. We need to change this to enemy.transform.position, again there. And then down here, we can just say enemy. And just to avoid that null reference exception, all we'll do is we'll put in here if not enemy dot is dead, then try and take damage. So hopefully it's not going to do anything if the enemy is null. We better have a null check down here as well, to be fair. If enemy does not equal null and enemy is not dead. So let's try. Hopefully he's not going to beat the troll to death after he's already died. Okay, so he does carry on beating the corpse of the golem, but we can live with that. He doesn't give up any null reference exceptions anymore. So we've got our mice working, but our poor troll is kind of a bit defenseless at the minute. I mean, he can throw rocks, but we have a limited sort of scope for what we can hit with these rocks. So we do have a punch animation, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so we have a kind of a punch animation. So let's go into our troll animator, and we will drag in that very animation. We'll add a new trigger, which we'll call punch, and then from any state you can transition into a punch, and then we transition out of that back into idle, and we just need to make sure that has an exit time so that he will do his punch and then go back to idle, and then if he's walking he'll go back into walking and so on. And then if we go into our golem script and where we have our controls, so we've got space, we'll say if input.get key down key code dot I'm going to use control, no, left control, is it? Left control. And then basically we do this, but instead of throw rock we're saying punch. So firstly let's just test and make sure punch is all working fine. There we go. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to put a cooldown on it, because as you can see, oh, he's dead now. Let's just raise his health back up a bit so he doesn't die immediately. So we need to put a cooldown on it so that we can't just keep punching before we've even finished the previous punch. So the way we'll do that is, like we have the is throwing one, we're going to say bool is punch. You know what, actually, we're going to change this to is attacking, and then it's a dual purpose bool. So if we just go down and we change this, is attacking, and I'm sure there's more references to it. Attacking, I think that's all of them. And then what we can do is, we have this thrown rock here. We can say, much similar to the way we've done this, we're just going to say public void punch land. Well, no, we don't know if it's going to land, do we? And then is attacking equals false. And then we'll go into our, oh, have we done that? I missed one. There we go. is attacking. Better. And then if we go into our animation, find golem, we want attack. Is it attack 1 or attack 2? It was attack 2. So once the punch has landed, there. Okay, so we need 2 animation events actually. So that's where he actually punches, and then that's the end of the animation. So this one we're going to call punch thrown. So that's where the punch is finished. We no longer need to cool down. We can throw another punch or throw a rock or whatever. But we do need a function for when he actually hits. So similar to throw rock, rock thrown, we need a public void punch land, I guess, for lack of a better name. This event will call that function. And then what we're going to do in there is we're going to steal some code from here. Let's just copy that for now. Stick that in here. Transform.position plus transform.forward. We're going to say times 4 because we worked out that the ideal attack range for the mouse was 4. So if the mouse stopped 4 units in front of the troll, he wasn't running actually inside the troll before swinging his stick. So because we know that, we could say transform.forward plus 4. Remember, transform.forward is 1 unit, so it's 0 on the X, 0 on the Y, 1 on the Z axis. So by timesing it by 4, we make it 0, 0, 4. So it's basically 4 units in front of the troll, and then we'll have that set to 2. We don't want it to be too big in a range. It's not like the rock throw where there's meant to be an impact radius. Punching is not going to affect bunnies because he's not punching the ground, so this is only going to affect mice. For now, we're not going to give the mice health. It's instant kill. If a mouse gets hit by the golem, he's dead. So, theory, I think that should work, but let's give it a try. So we've increased our golem's health, so he shouldn't die immediately. And of course it doesn't work. Let's decrease this by 2 and increase that by 4 just to make sure that it's actually working in the first place. Come on, my little mousy friend. There. Okay, so it's just a range thing. I just have my numbers off. And there goes the mouse. Let's leave him there for now, actually. We can modify him later. We need a mouse spawner. So if we look at our bunny spawn... Get out of my car! Sorry, I'm just going to turn Discord off because I'm getting messages and they're popping up in the video. We can basically copy most of this. The only thing that we're going to be changing is we don't want the mice spawning in the middle of the map. So you know what? We're not going to copy this. We're going to start one from scratch. So let's go into our scripts, create a new script. Mouse Knight spawner. We'll open that up. So the first thing we need is our mouse prefab. Public game object. Mouse prefab. And we'll create an object for it. And then actually we're going to need a public golem. No, sorry, because I spelt it wrong, so I'm stuck with that spelling. Public golem. And that is just so we can pass that reference onto our mouse knight. So we don't need to use this inefficient game object find at the start. We'll drag a mouse knight spawner on here. Go into our prefabs. Nope, wrong prefabs. Our prefabs folder. And we want to pass in our mouse knight prefab there. And pass in our golem character there. Now, what I want for our mice is, first off, we're going to bring the camera down a little bit, get them a bit closer to the action, because these mice are quite small, so really we want to be a bit lower down. Now, we are facing, I think we're facing straight forward. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have all the mice spawn off screen from the front. So if we just move our bunny spawner as well, so that all the bunnies are sort of in front of us. I'll just do a quick test to see how that looks. I'll just check that actually. Did the bunny spawner spawn absolute? Oh. Right, okay, so the bunny spawner sort of spawn in an absolute position. So if we just do transform.position plus, so then its random position is relative to the position of the bunny spawner. So now the bunny spawner should spawn around where I've moved the actual bunny spawner object to. Yeah, so they're a bit further forward. Dead. So we're going to have all the mice spawn off screen from the front, from where the troll is currently facing, and run towards him from there. So if I just move this mouse knight, it's quite far away really. I think I need to change the camera angle. Right, I'm gonna go with that. We can mess around with this later. So our mouse knight's gonna spawn in from 25 on the z-axis, 0 on the y-axis, and then just a random number between. We better actually check between what. And a random number between -25 and 25. So basically 25 is all round. So if we go back to our mouse knight spawner, let's do it in a coroutine. So IE numerator spawn mice, mice. While true. These can be dangerous because if you don't handle this properly, it will just loop forever. So we're going to say yield return new wait for seconds, and then we're going to give this a random number. So random.range, and we'll say between 3 and 5. So this will be, if you didn't already realize, this will be the time between mice spawning. The while true ensures that this will just keep looping forever. And then it's gonna, when it gets to the end of one while loop, it will wait for a random amount of seconds between 3 and 5, and then it will do it again. So we're instantiating a new mouse. Using the mouse prefab, we are putting him at a random X position between -25 and 25, 0 Y position because he's just on the flat ground, and 25 on the Z axis is just off camera in front of where the troll is standing. No rotation, and making him a child of this mouse spawner. And then we want to pass in that golem reference. So new mouse dot get component mouse knight. It's not a public object, is it? So we're just going to mouse knight. No, it's enemy, sorry, it's still not public, but yeah, we just need to make that public. We can get rid of this now because we're not going to be using that. Enemy equals, and then we're just going to say golem. So now we don't need to use that game object find at the start. And that, I think, might be all there is to it. We don't need this mouse knight anymore. We'll just deactivate him for now. We'll reset, not that it matters, but we'll reset the position of our mouse spawner. And in theory, you should start spawning mice. The reason he's not spawning mice is because while we've created this coroutine, we haven't actually started it anywhere. So let's create our start function. And then in the start function, we just say start coroutine spawn mice. And then we'll try that again. There's our first mouse. And we're going to get another one, and another one. Yeah, we definitely need to work on the rock throwing animation. Controls even. Run away! Ooh! Something went wrong with the mice. The prefab has not got a value for the cooldown, so let's just set that to 0.9 and give our troll a bit of a chance. Oh, 2 mice in one. So obviously we could make this a little bit harder, but I am reluctant to add anything beyond the assets that you suggest because it kind of makes the challenge, it feels like cheating. Like the whole challenge of this is meant to be me trying to make a game out of what you guys add. Ah, we're dead. We have a few little bugs that obviously, like these mice here are still running on the spot. You know what, let's just fix that now. May as well. So if enemy equals null, we'll just make sure animator animator.set bool moving false. So if we let our mice kill our poor troll one last time, Look at him bravely walking to his fate. Actually, we want them a bit further back down this way, so that the other mice can run on screen. There. They're no longer running, for no particular reason. So, that's the end of this video. Please make suggestions and like other people's suggestions in the comments for this one for the next video. Obviously this series can only continue as long as you guys are suggesting things. Thank you to Alaurim for this suggestion. I will see you next time. Bye bye.